The following is a story of Randy's life and how CPS caused mayhem in it, and why you should never get involved with child and family services. They have too much power as it is. Hello, my name is Randy Grimes and I was born in Louisville, Kentucky in 1979. Me and my younger brother Kenneth were ripped from the home of our biological mother, Donna Robertson, in 1983. I was about 2.5. And my brother was between a year and 15 months old. I'm not exactly sure of his exact age. All I know is he was 18 months old when our foster parent beat him to death in front of me using a metal spatula. After that ordeal, I was taken out of that abusive home and placed into the home of the innocents. I don't remember much from there. I was young and I lived a traumatizing life already, but I do remember from there I went to Mr. and Mrs. Collins. I remember them the most because I remember the taste of alcohol for the very first time. I was 4 years old and I knew alcohol was going to become my new best friend. A few days before my 5th birthday, I went to live my new adopted family. They were really good Christian people and did the best that they could, but had no business raising children with emotional problems. One of my first memories from my new happy home is being made to stand in the corner until I called them Mom and Dad. And at the age of 5, my new mommy told me something. She said I wasn't going anywhere and I was only hurting myself, so I may as well just say it. So from that day I called them Mom and Dad. I was so far behind when I got placed with the Grimes family. I couldn't hold a spoon to feed myself, I couldn't read or write, and I had never had any kind of schooling, no preschool, no kindergarten, no Head Start, nothing. I actually had to go see psychologist to see where I was mentally and educationally. I remember, this was actually how my parents found out I had severe learning disabilities. So one of the things I was asked, now mind you, I had never seen a farm because I was born and raised in Louisville, Portland neighborhood, which is the ghetto, so I was shown a picture of a calf and asked what it was. I didn't know. My parents were pissed. They thought I was playing with the PSYC doctor and not answering his questions, so when we got home my mom gave me one hell of a spanking because they told her I was borderline retarded. They had already adopted one retarded kid. They didn't know my older adopted brother was retarded until after they got him. So they sure as hell didn't want another one. That's where CPS comes back in the picture. Through the adoption agency and child and family services, we started going to these group meetings for adoptees. So through CPS I am introduced to Tim Hickman. Tim Hickman was a child predator, wolf in sheep's clothing. At the time, I was about 8 or 9 when the tutoring started. He was going to Campbellsville College and in the process of trying to adopt another child. So they allowed him to be in these groups and tutor children. However, it seemed as though I was the only one that really got the special tutoring from him. He proceeded to molest me for the next 3 years. When I finally said something, I got beat and told, you don't make up things like that about good church people. So this was ignored and brushed under the rug. My parents were too embarrassed to do anything about it because they didn't believe me. That is until Mr. Hickman wrote a letter apologizing to what he did. So Mr. Hickman was sent to counseling and of course I was made to be the problem. I started doing drugs soon after. Then, to add insult to injury, Taylor County school system tried to hire this man, which led to my first mental breakdown. So my parents threw a fit about them hiring him at the school board and he wasn't hired. So teachers seemed to really have an issue with me. I never had problems with other students, but the teachers seemed to have a problem with me. And it always was because I was so far behind, or because they just had an attitude with me because they thought I was acting to be in learning disability classes. So I would leave class because the teacher pissed me off or something, and my mom would laugh about it with my dad because the school called again and quote, like Elvis, Randy has left the building and quote. So, like I said, this led to my first mental breakdown and my first time being institutionalized. No, I'm not going to give you a play-by-play through my whole childhood, but there was a lot of me getting locked up and put into mental institutions. I tried committing suicide a few times, and I started doing hardcore drugs at the age of 14. I was looking at a lifetime of prison by the time I was 15 for some trouble I had gotten into that involved stealing guns and transporting them over state lines. So that is the path CPS set me on in the early years of my life. I got a little off topic because my parents were actually really good parents. They just weren't prepared for what the state of Kentucky made and sold them for $40,000. Okay, so back to my early years, when my brother was murdered. My biological mother sued and was awarded $50,000 for the death of my brother. But the state refused to let me go, and when I say the state, I'm referring to CPS. So I guess CPS was only out $10,000 for my brother, because they got $40,000 for me. Well, not really. Because they also got 2 more kids from my biological mother that they were able to make money off of both of them. So not only did the state of Kentucky's Children and Family Services destroy my life at a young age, but they also destroyed my biological mother's life, setting her on a very long path of drug and alcohol abuse because of depression of losing all of her children and not understanding why. You see, my biological mother was kind of slow, and the state took advantage of her when they learned this. So now fast forward to me being a young adult. I am already an alcoholic and had struggled with crack addiction since the age of 14. At about 19 I got married. I jumped into this because I met a girl who was 17 and about to be put in the system, and also she was pregnant with my firstborn, my daughter Caitlin. So we married, had my daughter, and I begun working on the river. While I was working I would be gone a month and home a month. While I was gone she cheated and got knocked up. I knew it wasn't mine. No way possible. So we broke up. Well, of course I had to pay for a DNA test on this other kid before I was allowed to divorce. Then at 27, I met my first son's mother, Stephanie. She got pregnant, we got married, my son, Connor, was born. I turned 28, and soon after we realized it wasn't going to work, so we divorced. Now, before I met my son's mother, I had gotten hurt and become disabled. I was fighting and awaiting my Social Security. During this period, after I left my son's mother, I met my second son's mother, and she was pregnant real quick. So Connor was born in 2008, and Dominic was born 2010. So it was real quick. It didn't work out with Dominic's mom either. It was just too soon after leaving my first son's mother. The divorce wasn't even final, and Tammy, Dominic's mom, wanted to get married. Because I said I wasn't ready for all that, she took off and shacked up with some meth head biker. I never got to meet my son, and he was never told about me. Now it's 2017, and my daughter Caitlin is 17 years old, and due to turn 18 within 6 months. Now my daughter and had a great relationship until she became a teenager, it became a very complex and strained relationship. She was in trouble for stuff like sending boys pics of her naked body at the age of 12. And her mom allowing her a boyfriend at the age of 11. I did not agree with these things, and because of this it seemed like her mom pushed her more in this direction. She started lying a lot. For example, she was 13 and called my wife and told her a boy kicked her door in and was chasing her with a knife trying to rape her. This never happened. And it was not the first time she accused a boy of raping her. When she was 7, she accused her mother aunt's, Cheryl High, grandson of sexual abuse. Nothing ever came of it because no one would pressure charges. The county said it was a city problem and the city said it was a county problem, and CPS wouldn't touch child-on-child rape supposedly. Okay, so back to the point, my daughter called me when she was 17 and asked me to sign legal papers allowing her to get married. When she first asked, I had no clue who she wanted to marry. When I told her no, she then proceeded with, "You won't let me because it is a woman." Come to find out, it was a grown-up woman in her mid-20s wanting to marry my 17-year-old. The answer was still no. This was during the time one of the county clerks in our state was refusing to issue same-sex marriage certificates. I told her no, and I thought that was the end of that. Well, about a month later I get a call from Pulaski County CPS office. My daughter called them and claimed that when she was like 9 or 10, she can't remember the exact age, I believe, or maybe I can't. I beat her multiple times. She said I was drunk and high on all kinds of drugs, and I bloodied her nose repeatedly and threw her down the stairs and all kinds of off-the-wall things I would have never even thought of. I tell this CPS worker that this is completely false, and we set up a meeting. At the meeting with CPS, I inform them that my daughter had recently been hospitalized and had severe mental and emotional issues. I also advise them that she has been known to lie and make false accusations against people when she don't get her way. Like the time she did not want to return to her mom, she told us her mom beat her and she was afraid. This was a big ordeal and police were called. So the CPS lady then tells us that she wants my husband to sign papers saying he will attend counseling, submit drug test, and follow some type of plan. He told the lady he would give her a drug test, but he would not go to counseling and he would not sign her papers because his daughter was about to be 18, and this was all completely false and unfounded. There were no police reports, photos, or anything to corroborate her story except for the previously mentioned Aunt Cheryl High, whose grandson allegedly molested her. This woman said she seen something like bruises or me hitting her. I really don't remember, except that she was a unquote witness unquote. Now fast forward to 2021. I received an email out of the blue from some guy, the first messaged a year before, looking for my son. This man had previously engaged to Dominic's mom. In this email, the man tells me that my son is in foster care and has been since he was about 10 years old. He was 11 at this time. He gave me the information to find him, so I did. I called One Hope United and Highland County, Florida, and told them I was the father of Dominic Lamb. At this time they were in the process of terminating the mother's rights and putting my son up for adoption. I stopped this process and started the procedure of getting my son. They sent me the papers to get a DNA test. I proved paternity and then there was a court date. They were all very happy at first, especially when they found out that I was on Social Security. disability. The exact words that the judge said were, and quote, "Oh, this one comes with a check," and quote. At that exact moment I knew I was not getting my son. About 1 week after this court date I get a letter in the mail informing me that my other son Connor had been removed from his mother's care because she was arrested and convicted of trafficking meth. His mother has a sister who worked for the state in mental health and worked hand in hand with children and family services. Not only that, but this specific sister's husband was a juvenile probation officer, police officer. So I really didn't have a chance there. Not to mention when the state of Florida reached out to the state of Kentucky to do a home visit to make sure I was fit to raise my own son. The states used my daughter's bogus allegations against me. Although my home was fine, they denied giving me my son, Dominic. Then, the Florida State CPS proceeded to tell me the only way I had a chance at getting him home with me was to cooperate with whatever case plan Kentucky advised I. The upcoming hearing for my son Connor in Kentucky. So Florida tied both cases together even though they are completely separate situations that should not be involved with each other. So I was assigned a court-appointed attorney for my son in Florida. I spoke with this woman one time and her main focus was not my son. It was her asking me why I had children with women who did drugs. My response was obvious. They didn't do drugs when I was with them because I would not have been worth a meth user. I was also given a court-appointed attorney in Kentucky for the case with my son. Well, this guy was a real winner. He gave me a wrong number on a torn piece of paper. When I called the number, it was a wrong number that had been disconnected. I called the social worker assigned to the case and she never called me back. During the court hearing in Kai, the security guard stood right behind my wife and I with his hand on his forearm as if I were some type of criminal. My ex-wife stood there freshly out of rehab after being charged for trafficking a pound of meth, laughing at me because she already knew I didn't have a chance. CPS and their corruption didn't like people like me who were already victims of their making. Now today I am in Kentucky and unable to travel to Florida to all of these court hearings. Now, they are terminating my parental rights to my son in Florida and there is nothing I can do because I am unable to afford to travel there and pay for an attorney. This was my story, which is still being written, but nonetheless this is my story of CPS and them causing the 4 M's in my life: murder, molestation, manipulation and mayhem. Thank you for your time, Randy T. Grimes aka the American Slave.